I had a present gifted me. Well, it wasn't a present. I had a parcel arrive yesterday, and I feel that some of it might be what we might be talking about, because it is a packet of trees. And as the weather is absolutely gorgeous today, I'm going out to plant them. And one of them is an apple tree, the Bardsey apple from Merlin's Island, which is why I got it.
Apples are just, they are hand in hand with Avalon, aren't they? And all of the other.
Well, the whole thing is, yeah. And I don't know whether you know, but Lundy Island is one of the places Avalon is supposed to be.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. There's several spots, isn't there?
Oh, it's all over. Yeah. I mean, it's like, Arthur's Spurt. In fact, actually, as we're starting yappering, are we all right on this?
Yeah.
Should we just go for it and start yappering?
I'm already recording, so go for it. I didn't want to miss anything important.
So you've got me getting up and putting my light on and the whole bloody well, hi everyone. Since I'm already here, I didn't know I was here, but then that's not unusual. I never know I'm here.
We can start any time, and I can trim the beginning and the ending. So
well, you decide what you want to trim off, but I'm definitely into trees and apples today, and I was so pleased. I found, and I'm not going to be able to remember the nursery's name, but anyway, they're doing it. They've reclaimed the old apple and they're growing the tree, and you can actually buy it because it was one of those old apples that people didn't bother with. And
we lost a lot, haven't we? We've lost a lot of the really old varieties.
Yeah. Although it is getting better again. People are caring.
Mm-hmm.
And people are asking for them, and so nurseries are hunting up, the old stock and breeding them.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, which is great sort of help. But no, I discovered it, and as you know, Merlin was one of my. Well, he looked after me for the first 70 years.
Yeah.
So actually, to be able to get his apple. It's like, fantastic. Oh yeah.
There are several spots, aren't there, that are said to be Avalon, Glastonbury obviously being one.
Obviously, yeah.
I wonder why the various places actually lay claim to. Each one must have a reason for laying claim to.
I think perhaps we need to sort of. And I think it's probably going to be something we're going to talk about a lot, because I know you feel the same way as I do. People think there's got to be one right answer. But how can it
never is?
For goodness sake, physics tells us that in one of the simplest ones. Light is both particles and waves.
Good
and
answer.
It is.
It
isn't either or. And that's so blooming basic. We wouldn't even be doing this now if we hadn't got light. And so part of it is sort of going zzz really prettily, and the other part is going ping, 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 ping,
ping. And that's your science lesson for today.
That's absolutely it. I wish I'd teach it like that, though, because it makes damn sight more sense.
Don't say we don't ever teach you anything.
But there's there's Avalon, there's Glastonbury, as you say, there's Bardsey Island, which in Welsh is Ynys Enlli, and which is just off the bottom left-hand corner of Wales. Carmarthen.
My geography is a bit rubbish, so I'll trust you on
that. I tend to sort of top left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, so getting that wrong. It sort of works. Particularly as I've got quite a lot of American students, and they don't know where our places are.
No.
Just as if I sort of say, okay, tell me where Wisconsin is, and you sort of go, so, they sort of say, well, where is it? And you sort of say, well, it's down the bottom left-hand corner or down the bottom right-hand corner. All right, I got it.
That's my kind of geography.
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, if you're not actually being a geographer, near enough,
That's close enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's also, of course, we're back into Avalon places. Not so many people know is Lundy Island.
Right.
Which is off the North Devon coast. And I've been there and it's stunning. I couldn't the only way I get there now is in a helicopter, probably you too. Because the sea goes up and down like this. So I'd be sick all the way. That's why.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so it's like, give me half an hour and a cup of tea and I'll be off there. And then you have to sort of make it down this weird gangplank while the sea is still doing this onto this small stone jetty. And then you have to climb up the cliff, which they do have steps.
Yeah, but no.
No. It doesn't happen,
There are some things I will do for my faith. Like me.
Well, if I can get a helicopter to drop me there easily, I think I'll work on that one. Because I would get there then, and it is worth it. You can get a cottage and stay and just go and feel into the place, which is gorgeous. But so there's places. Where else is it? Because there must be further north.
Tintagel's another one, isn't it? That's got.
Well, it's not Avalon, really.
No, it's got that Merlin connection, hasn't it?
Oh, it has, and they've now even got a. I don't like it. They've got this carving in the rock of Merlin.
I haven't seen that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and on the top of the cliff, they've got this King Arthur statue, which
that one.
Yeah, somewhere or another, I've taken groups there because I do rather fun workshop using it. And we've got pictures of ourselves because it's sort of bits of metal in a vaguely human and slightly armored shape, and so we've got pictures of us going. I feel we're not very reverential.
There is a bridge across to it now, isn't there? You don't have to.
Oh my God!
The really tiny steps on the side of the cliff now.
I would. That's something I actually will do for my faith, kind of thing. I go up there. I haven't been across the bridge yet.
No, I haven't.
And I'm not terribly good at heights.
Mm-mm.
And that is what I call a cup of coffee.
Oh yes. Yeah, freshly made.
That takes me back to France. But yeah, it's one of those glorious sort of, not exactly spidery, but a slim, very beautiful arch.
Yeah.
And it is one hell of a drop underneath there.
Yes. I do like the feeling at the top, though. When you stand there, there's a kind of peace that you get on the top of the...
And if you go to some places, there are a couple of what I call boiling wells. Places where you get the double vortex of the Earth's energy and the sun energy going together, aren't there? And I mean, you stand on that and you're thinking,
we've been up there when it's been quite stormy and the waves have been crashing up the side. And, amazing. Yeah, totally. That's Mother Nature at her best. Yeah, amazing.
Absolutely. And so you've been out to the what I call the stack. You go out sort of right to sort of the other side, so you're looking out to sea, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's this big finger of rock sticking up out of the cliff.
Yeah.
And underneath it just boils.
Yeah.
And it boils anyway, even in the calm.
Yeah.
So in the storm, it's like, and it's coming up, and the water hits you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's total. And the colour, because when I took Paul there first, we called them turquoise milkshakes.
Perfect.
It's not blue. It is fairy colour.
Yeah.
It is turquoise.
It's definitely a magical place.
I love it. I love it. Do you want a funny story?
Oh, always.
Well, yeah, it was the last time I did the workshop. I do a workshop of, was it 5? It's 5 places, which are all within about 5 miles of there, and we stay in one of them. And anyway, we'd gone up to do Merlin's Cave and the island, as I call it, the top. And we'd done Merlin's, so we'd organised it with the tides, which is fairly important because you could get stuck in Merlin's Cave, get the tides wrong. Not a good idea. Anyway, we'd done that, and we came back out as the tide was coming in, and we went up to Tintagel, and there's a nice little National Trust cafe there, and everybody was feeling in a bit dire need of a coffee and a sandwich, so we did. And the National Trust shop. And they've got a couple of nice things in there. I mean, they've got all the usual taps, but they've got a rather neat, very small little geology thing. And so I said, well, let's go and have a look at that before we go out on the island. So we went in there. But, of course, you can't just go in there and look at that. You know, everybody was there around looking at all the rest of the stuff. And this, actually, just hang on a minute, and I'll just get him because I'm going to need this in a minute.
We like a bit of show and tell.
You're not going to see him until he appears. Anyway, which he's just about
now.
Which he's just about to do. Anyway, one of the girls came along, clutching this. Now, if I can do this right, can you see the shape of his tail?
Yeah.
Right. That's important because she just went like that, right in my face. So I got in my face. It was so sweet. And so I went, oh, you know, because I'm a real Corvid person. And so I said, I've got to have him. And I thought he was a crow because I hadn't looked properly. But, excuse me while I pick you up by a wing. His tail is sort of like diamond shaped.
Yes.
And that's the shape of a raven's tail.
Right, yes.
And so, oh no, he's a raven. So there was me sort of, you know, going up to the counter going, I want him. And because I'm stupid like that. Anyway, so I had him. And so I was going around like this and clutching my raven for a bit. So anyway, the girl who brought him to me said, oh God, I've got to have one too. So she went and got one. And then one of the boys on the course said, oh dear. And he went off to the counter and he bought 2. Now, he bought 2 for a very good reason, because he's actually a follower of Odin. Right. And so it was Odin's pair of ravens, whose name Huinamudi, I think it is.
Yeah, it's the pronunciation I'm not sure.
Oh, never mind. I think it was near enough. Anyway, so there's him coming along with, you know, a raven each side, like this. And so then the other 2 girls succumbed, and they bought a raven each too. One of the blokes who was, he's really sweet. He's one of my Barnes students now. And he was like, we were also standing outside admiring our ravens and laughing. And everybody else was sort of saying, you've got to have one. We've all got one. You've got to have one. You know, I can't, you know, I can't possibly go around with a raven. Like this. So anyway, and he said, oh my God, I've got to have one. So he shot back into the shop and bought a raven. And then I thought of a man I used to work with, and I thought, oh, he's got to have one too. So I went back in and bought the last raven.
I was going to say, how many of them were there?
This was the last raven. Oh, it gets worse and better, this story. So anyway, there we all were with our ravens, and I got mine like tucked in my raincoat here, so his nose stuck out. Somebody else had got it sort of like that. Somebody else had got them in their backpack and all this sort of thing. And there were a lot of Japanese tourists there. And I'm afraid we're rather wicked. And they're all going, oh, like this really.
The mad eccentric English people.
Yeah, and cuddling our ravens, and they were sort of like giving us this, with social distancing around us. And so we had great fun with that. Anyway, we brought them around, and everybody had immediately like fallen for them. I mean, this is a velveteen, idiotic, fluffy toy, but it isn't.
But he's very nicely made, and to have the detailing on the tail as well is quite unusual, isn't it? They've obviously paid attention when they created it.
They did. And they've also, all of them have got, somehow they've got character, because when we got up the path and into Tintagel, and by the time we got up to, the fire pit, where they found the stone, which sort of says in ancient Greek, Arthur was here or something. And by the time we got up there, everybody's raven had got a name.
Obviously.
His is Merlin. Obviously. And so anyway, we're really getting into our ravens, but we're also really getting into the feel of Tintagel. So we went round, and right round the other side, after you've gone to the sticky uppy stone and round to the left, there's a cave which you can sort of slither your way down into, and it's quite big. And you're just looking out on the sea. It's absolutely stunning. And I said, well, we've got to go there. So we all went in there. So the guy who'd been really reluctant to buy a raven put his on a rocky shelf in the cave. So somebody else put theirs up. So we then have a picture of, I think it's 8 ravens, 9, in this cave. So we also backed out without falling in the sea, and took a picture of these 8 ravens having a rave in a cave. Yeah, it's like that. Sorry, my courses are like that.
I'm definitely coming on the next one.
Oh, exactly. Well, we have fun. I mean, it really does do you, but you do have to.
Yeah, you've got to have fun.
You do. So we got back to the shop, and everybody in the shop by this time heard about these crazy people who bought all the ravens. So they all needed to see us, and so went in and said thank you. Yeah, they were great, marvelous, and they were staying with us for the rest of our life, and we'd all be buried with them, etc. And so they said, well, what did you do? So we actually told them about the cave. So the girl in charge of the shop said, we've got to have that picture. So it went up on their Facebook page.
Excellent.
And we were going around the whole time. People there's one woman while we were waiting because a couple of them were fit so they could go up the hill, but we waited for the Land Rover to take you up about half a mile up the track. And this woman and her daughter of about 16, they were sort of looking at us like this. And so I got to ask, she said, what's with the ravens? Now I'm not going to be able to do this now, but I can do this totally straight-faced. Let's try. So, we're the Raven Clan. We always get together here every year, to celebrate the ravens at this time of year.
I knew you weren't going to give her a sensible answer.
And so anyway, she followed up. And so we were having this crazy conversation about what sort of sacrifices we did to ravens, and was it midnight, or did you actually have to go at 1 o'clock in the morning, and all this kind of total shit. And we got this crowd around us, and it turns out she and her daughter were witches too.
Right. Which is why she believed you.
Well, I don't know whether she believed all what I said, but she totally got the point. I think some of the sacrifices got a little bit complicated.
I generally find that with sacrifices.
I do too. I normally don't bother with them, but this was quite irrepressible. But we got quite a little crowd around. So I don't know whether we're still known, and this was about 6 years ago now.
I don't know. I think you're probably onto something there.
Well, you know, I don't know. But anyway, this is my Tintagel raven. Which profile do you like best? He says.
He is fantastic.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you like me. Yes. Right, you go and sit over there, dear. That's fine. But they did become. It was really weird because nobody had, except me, of course. Nobody had a familiar spirit before when they came on the course. They all did. And, you know, a fluffy toy brought the whole feel of a familiar spirit to them. It was like, oh.
Well, it's no different. We put statues, don't we, and ornaments on our altars for animals and deities, and there's no reason why it has to be a bronze or a ceramic statue. There's no reason why it can't be a stuffed toy one.
No. And I couldn't separate my lot. I mean, they'd come down for, you know, our morning talk like this, you know, catching raven. And the ravens had to go on the next walk on the next 3 days.
Obviously,
so the ravens really got around. But it was so lovely that people sort of understood that anything could have spirit in that sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, it didn't have to be something, you know, posh and beautiful.
Yeah, no.
It could be, I know you're beautiful, dear. It's all right. And I just got to look then. Excuse me. You know.
Feel the eyes boring into you.
Yeah, there's a bit of a long beak there too. Yes, sir. So no, it can be really weird.
Brilliant. You got to have fun too. You definitely got to have fun. Got to have a laugh.
But you have fun whenever you do your courses, don't you?
Oh, well, you have to. It's very difficult for me to keep a sensible head or a straight face for very long. The gods have a sense of humour, so we need to, definitely.
They certainly do. They certainly do. I mean, have you got any sort of glorious tales of one of your courses?
Most of ours are online, other than the workshop ones. We were talking about apples earlier. I do have an apple story.
Oh, great.
We did a Samhain ritual in person one, and I'd dried apple slices to use symbolically. So we went round the circle handing out dried apple slices. And of course, the first person starts to eat it. And because the first person happened to be quite a sort of high up druid, all the others followed. Oh, we must have to eat it then. But how they managed to chew these really dry, chewy apple slices, I have no idea. I had to say,
actually, we were going to do something else with those.
Very, very chewy. They must have been quite horrendous to eat.
I mean, one does dry fruit. I mean, I do, and that. But this was obviously taken somewhat further.
Yes, yeah. No, I hadn't dried it with the purpose of eating it. They were very chewy. But of course, apples, very symbolic of Samhain. We had apples in our online Samhain ritual that we did last weekend as well.
Yes, all of my current apprentices did in theirs, and I hadn't told them, but somebody did anyway. They cut, you know, normally you cut an apple that way.
Yeah.
No, they cut it that way.
Yeah.
Do people know? Do people know? And I've got to go and get an apple and cut it.
I've only got a banana or a pomegranate, so I'm a bit.
I have actually got an apple. Shall I get one? I can always eat it later. Carry the news flash. Will you carry the news flash while I'm getting the apple?
This can only happen with us, really. So I'll talk to you while Ellen's disappeared. Apples, very, very symbolic of Samhain and a very strong link to Avalon. And the other world, the apple is said to have a very strong link to that. But there is a specific way to cut it, and I'm sure Ellen will show you in a minute when she comes back. But apples do have all sorts of connections, abundance, love, the other world connection. And here, look, we've got, this is like Blue Peter.
Oh, well, I have my knife. This apple. I also have the apple. Normally, people cut them downwards, you know, from the stalk to the bottom kind of thing. I'm not going to. I'm going to cut mine that way. So I can't do this actually in front of you because
let's not have any bloodshed.
No, well, yeah, blood happens as well. So
sacrifice again, aren't we?
That's usually the only sacrifice I do.
Yeah.
Which of you is better? Actually, you're pretty good. Oh yeah, because you've got all the dots. Okay, well they both have. That's
perfect, isn't it? And
now, do you all see that?
Brilliant.
And what shape is that? And
brilliant.
All the dots around it. It's got lots of dots where the seeds go to. Let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 dots. So you've got 5 arms, which makes sense. And you've got the 10 dots around it. And that is so symbolic. I mean, for a start off, it's like a human figure.
It does look, that one particularly looks like a little person.
Yeah, they don't all look as good as that, but that one particularly does.
Spot on, isn't it?
But also, it's like you've got the 4 elements plus what most people call spirit, which is part of the symbolism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was that what you were going to do with your part of what you were going to do when the druid ate your apple? Damn druid.
Life of me, I can't remember what we were going to do some spell work with it, but I can't remember what we were actually going to do with it. But we did cut the apple like you've just done in our online sewing ritual that we just did. To make people stop and think, really, to make them reflect on the year that's just passed. And to look inwards, to let go what didn't serve, and of course then to move forward.
Yeah, indeed. And it really does bring it home. I mean, most people say, oh, the Druids discovered this, but since apples have been around for millions of years, or hundreds of thousands anyway, I suspect people got there before there were Druids.
Yeah.
I just have this sort of feeling about it. Yeah. I don't think we suddenly went, bing! But yeah, they are so amazing. Which is, again, part of why I wanted this particular apple tree.
Yeah.
You know, because it's on from Merlin's Island. I mean, apples. I mean, it's not just Britain that has apple trees and apples and things as it's one of its big things. They are, wherever apples grow, people seem to think of them.
Yeah.
In a special way.
They do have that very strong connection to Avalon, don't they? They are
very
symbolic of it.
Yeah. Well, that's what it means, isn't it? Avalon means Apple Isle.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it does. And I think it's perfectly okay to have places all around the world. I mean, that are related to this. I mean, Merlin and Arthur are related to places in France and even in northern Germany. There are very similar legends in Greece, and you sort of go, hang on a minute, that sounds
familiar.
So and so. Scotland has masses of it, and Cheshire, and that sort of connection, because there were connections long before, which you're doing, aren't you? I mean, in the tribes book that you're going to do, or that you're in the process with.
We can. Ellen and I discovered a couple of days ago we're both researching the same thing. A bit more synchronicity.
Not for quite the same reason. No.
But yeah, we're looking at the tribes, the ancient British tribes that were around long before the Romans came over for their picnic. We had lots. Britain was separated into tribes, wasn't it? And each tribe had its there's deities, isn't there, connected to each tribe and each area as well.
There are.
I've only just started, but it's fascinating already.
And it feels, I mean, I've sort of been my dad was into this as well, so I used to get all this kind of stories when I was a kid, and it really feels as though the tribes are there because of the spirit of place of the land that they live in.
Yeah.
And so, maybe in parts of, even in Devon, but in Wales, say, you might have your land goddess as Ceridwen, or further over as Rhiannon. Then you will get her differently in Yorkshire and in Scotland under different names. And this always fascinated me, and I sort of thought, okay, but the stories are very similar, and the whole feeling of the deity, the god or goddess, is the same. So you're being Ceridwen for these people and Brigantes for those people.
Yeah.
And then if you actually travel around a bit, which I was able to, well, I still do a little bit, but and you actually go to these places and you feel into them and you go, oh, I see.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the deities seem to have started just from a river. So the tribe would have a very strong big river, and the river would claim lives, but it would also provide food, so it gave life. So they would then start honouring the spirit of the river, and the spirit of the river would then be given a name, and that would become the goddess of the river. And a lot of the stories seem to be like that. And some of the goddesses are gods as well, just seem to be associated with one river or one very small area and never heard of anywhere else.
Yeah. And if you actually sort of then feel into them, but I have found that you can say, oh, so you're doing this with this little stream on the edge of Dartmoor, but you're actually doing this also with this stream that comes down from the Long Mynd. But we don't call you the same thing there.
No.
Our language wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So it really does. I mean, one of them, which is certainly from the Welsh stories, one of the mother goddesses is Dom.
Right, yeah.
Go all over Europe with your atlas. And look for the rivers that are Dom.
Yeah.
And you will find them.
That's a bit of a telltale, isn't it? The place names in across the globe. The place names so quite often echo the goddesses, don't they?
You have to sort of work a little bit because, of course, the languages have changed, and people say the name in a different way. I mean, I get it sometimes when people will call me Helen.
Oh.
And you go, no, that's too late. My name is spelt very old way. But yeah, it does. But they're really helpful. And if you start going into some of the old Brythonic languages and even the Anglo-Saxon, and you get into their words and you go, oh, really? Chase that one up. And you learn so much about it. It's absolutely gorgeous.
For me, I think it is about, I was prompted really, I think, because we're so used to, I teach about the Greek pantheons and the Egyptian pantheons and the ones that we're all familiar with. But it struck me that we, as in the British Isles, must have had our own deities before all of that, which is what kind of started me on the adventure, if you like. And for me, it's quite important because I feel it's about me connecting to the land that I live on. I think I'm going to have a stronger connection. I hope I'm going to have a stronger connection once I start really delving into it. And I've found some fascinating goddesses already.
Mm.
And I think for me, it is about that connecting where my feet are, basically.
Yeah. I think it is for a lot of people. And I find it with my students, and they sort of go, oh, that's sort of like that. I mean, little when you were talking about the Greek pantheon, well, lots of people, probably certainly females, women, quite into Artemis because she was quite a feisty lady.
Yeah.
Well, if you go into Vivian's stories,
right, you find the connection.
Same.
Yeah.
Including all the deer stuff.
Right.
There's Artemis and Heracles and the deer, which is sort of quite a well-known one because it's got a rather gorgeous picture. But you go into, particularly in Broceliande in Brittany, and you will find the same things, and you will in Wales, and you will in Scotland as well. And then you start sort of like chasing this through.
Yeah.
And some of the Brittany legends tell that, and this is really weird. I've found it. I brought it out in one of the books, but in the Merlin book. But Merlin, as you probably all know, was supposed to be the child of an otherworldly father and a this world mother. Christians made the otherworldly father a devil, but I mean, you've got to do that in that, haven't you? So, but now Vivian, who is his partner, Nimue, or various of her names, Ninian is another of her names, is also a half and half child. But in her case, her mother was otherworldly and her father was this world. And her mother, the connections in the Breton legends are that her mother was Diana.
Right.
Who is Artemis.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, That also took me into incubus and succubus stuff when I was researching that. Because, of course, that's like, terrifying. Instead of, perhaps he's quite fanciful. Sorry. And so I thought, yeah, I see how the stories have been rewoven, as all politicians do, to make their point. But, maybe this is what this is about, where this is a joining of worlds in a literal physical way that brings forth what do you call them? A half person, a being who is very strongly in both worlds.
But it was all stories, wasn't it? That's how it was passed from one person to the other, was stories. And you got to imagine that things were changed slightly each time. Each person told the story and moved on to another village and told the story there with a slight difference. And of course, we weren't an island originally, were we? We were joined to
indeed,
Europe, weren't we? So you could just walk across. You didn't have to go across the Channel Tunnel.
Or up and down on the blooming ferry. No, and that was only after the end of the last ice age, because it's when the big glacier went above northeast Scotland, and that just sort of opened up, and it drowned Doggerland, of course, which is a totally fascinating sort of archaeology and history and story, and came down and broke us from the continent with one little island, well, some little islands, because you've got the Guernsey Islands and all the Channel Islands sticking up, the Isle of Man sticking up, because that was another little bit, and takes us back into more Innis's Island in Welsh, various Innises, where the stories actually talk about the land disappearing.
Right, yes.
And fairy taking it back. And of course it did.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Human beings are pretty rough. I don't blame them.
Well, you sort of think Mother Earth is there going, actually, I'm not quite sure. Was I drunk at the time? Yeah, you can actually sort of see that. But islands coming up and going away again, they're a worldwide thing. And of course, they've happened ever since, because, I mean, you know, the continents weren't always like they are now, and all joined into various confloctions. 2 or was it 3 times? Yes, I mean, they talk about Pangaea, but there were more than just the one variation. So
it was a very different place, wasn't it? Difficult to imagine, really. But
well, Our Lady is always changing.
Yeah.
You know, she's changing now. Various people who say, and I agree with them, that human beings are worse than cats at change. And T.S. Eliot does it incredibly well in his long poem Burnt Norton, where he says, humankind cannot bear very much reality.
Oh, no, we're not good with that at all.
No. And no, you got it right, mate, there. And because we don't want change. It's like now, you know, with the virus and all this sort of thing, and so much is changing and nobody wants it. I just want to go back to how it was. And
famous word.
Oh shit, mate, you got it. You can't turn it around. And somebody was saying to me the other day, I had to go down the doctor's surgery and give blood for various of my medications. And there's this woman. It's quite funny because she actually thought she was older than me, and so I thought, well, that's nice. And no, I could give her at least 10 years. And anyway, she says, oh, you know, la la la, and this sort of thing, and I just wanted to go back, and I'm so bored with watching the television, and I just want to get back to normal. And I thought, duct tape now.
And so television is the only option.
Well, it is for her, because I could have sort of said, well, how about, you know, going for a walk? How about wildlife? How about, you know, you read books? How about blah, blah? And she'd have looked at me with a sort of total blank look. And it's sort of like, no, don't even start. You can't do it. So there are going to be those who make it with the change, and there are going to be those who don't.
It's difficult because I know from the mental health point of view, it has affected everyone as well, isn't it? But it's not going away. It's something we have to deal with, and you have got to try and make the best of it, really.
Well, you do, because you cannot change it.
No.
And she was also sort of talking about this woman. She's absolutely. Well, I'm glad I wasn't there for too long, but it was funny at the time. And she was there sort of saying, oh, but, you know, Boris has said that the virus has gone away. And I was there thinking, I can really feel that virus and the virus's spirit, of course, taking the slightest bit of notice of anything Boris or anybody else says.
No, it's not going to listen to humans at all. We've just got to behave ourselves. And we're not very good at doing that.
No, behaving ourselves means a hell of a lot more than social distancing and masks.
Yeah.
And people don't get that.
No.
That's what's going to really sort of do it. And nobody's given them a formula of this, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that, you know, recipe kind of thing, and then you'll be all right. And of course, because there isn't one. No. And people are finding it so difficult.
Yeah, I do understand that. It is not very nice having to be cooped up if you're not very good at that. But you have to find ways around it, don't you? And, you know, it's opened up, as we've said before, this kind of thing. I wouldn't have been talking to you like this if the virus hadn't happened, I'm sure.
Well, we didn't, did we?
No, we didn't. Online stuff didn't really happen.
No. So now we're really doing it. Yeah. And it's making a massive difference.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot more on a much more simple level, in a way. I see a lot more people going for walks.
Yeah. Nature and garden. Oh, the garden has been a complete sanctuary. I wouldn't have been able to do without that.
And it is for so many people. And of course, we've just gone into yet another of Boris's lockdowns, which, since it seems to depend who and what you are, whether you get locked down, I really don't see the point.
I guess we have to do something.
Well, you have to do something to look good and get votes. Okay, we know that one. That's fine. So we just sort of started on another one, which is going to suddenly be okay on the 2nd of December.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, but my idea of you're okay, your idea of okay, and everybody else's idea of okay, there could be a big split there. But it is like, no, you don't do that.
Well, it's an unprecedented situation, isn't it? And I think all of us have had to adapt and learn new ways of thinking and new ways of doing things, and because we haven't had to deal with anything like this before, really.
Not since 1918.
No, I don't remember that one.
That's the point of learning history.
This lifetime doesn't remember that one.
No, that's true too. But on the other hand, but people don't want to read that again. And I think that's part of this sort of no change. I don't want to know. I only want to know what I want to know. The 1918 flu took out a quarter of the world.
Do you think it's one of those things? We do have something that happens every so often where Mother Earth has a bit of a clear out, basically.
Yeah, sprinkling.
But whether it's a pandemic or a war or whatever it might be, every so often. That's just
or a good quality volcano.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I cannot remember, is it 1300 and something or another, and the world was dark for 2 years.
Right.
Because of volcano.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And it just put the cloud up there, and you sort of think, well, you think you've got climate problems now? Try that. I mean, the Viking settlement in Iceland pretty well went under then.
Right.
Wales was horrendously flooded, and parts of Devon and things like that. So yes, I think every now and again she decides, really, there's a hell of a lot of stuff on, here that is past its sell-by date.
Yeah.
I need to clean my fridge. And she does very often, and we really ought to take this to heart. It's us. Because all the things I've mentioned actually wiped out humans.
Yeah.
Not the rest of the world. Yes, we did have. I mean, she decided dinosaurs needed to go. And that was sort of like large.
Yeah, pretty massive.
This is bad. Yeah.
Next.
Well, and the thing is, and I mean, if you really sort of read something other than like the Daily Whale or something.
I don't read newspapers.
I don't read newspapers either. My dad used to call the Daily Mail the Daily Whale. And I sort of think, yeah, you got it. But if you read something else, then you realize that it isn't when, or it isn't if we get a meteor, it's when.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was never if we get a pandemic, it was when.
Yeah.
We will. These are cycles.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And the cycles mean, guys, you've got to change. We cannot go on like this.
Got to break the cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, as Elliot said, we're not very good at reality. The best thing is to get, slap us all in the face with a very large wet shark. Not a small sardine. You've seen that. You've seen that Monty Python one.
Got to love a bit of Monty Python.
Oh yeah, and it's Eric Idle and John Cleese. And Eric Idle, they're standing on this quay And Eric Idle sort of does a sort of diddly 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 dance smack with a small sardine on John's face. Diddly 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 smack with small sardine. And so and John, it's his go. You know, the verse is finished, and John Cleese takes this bloody great salmon and goes wallop and wipes Eric Idle into the drink.
Two absolute TV legends.
Totally. But I do think we need to, you know, it was very funny and it is absolutely gorgeous and something like we all remember and a TV legend, but it got a lot of truth in it.
Yes. Oh, I think most comedy has, hasn't it?
Else it wouldn't be funny.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe we ought to sort of consider this a small shark. She has got bigger ones. It's like a buck up or you will get a bigger one.
It's about learning lessons too, isn't it? I think it made me think about shopping more. I mean, I try and be as eco-friendly as I can anyway, but the last big lockdown earlier, it did make me think about where I bought everything from. And because you couldn't get an online grocery shop from a supermarket, then it pushed me to source smaller individual suppliers. I already had a veg box from a local company anyway, and I've stuck with most of it too. The people I discovered some fantastic independent companies to order from, and that was quite an eye opener for me. Found some lovely stuff.
I think quite a lot of people have. I mean, the place where I get my veg box from, I mean, their business went zoop, and they scrabbled a bit at first, but they've got the hang of it and they've sorted it for everyone. And so you're also sort of thinking there's a hell of a lot more people eating decent food.
I went back to having a milkman too. Haven't had a milkman since I was a child. But I went and basically the Riverford veg box people and the milkman kept us going through the last lockdown. We didn't really need an awful lot extra. And they carried on.
No, we found the same with our veg box, and they actually the people who do it. They also do things like, you know, olive oil and Ecover cleaning products and things like that. Mind you, I always did get those online anyway because they're very hard. You can't go to Sainsbury's and get that kind of stuff. I chat because the other thing is, you know, when the girl delivers my veg box, it's all like, how's things? You didn't get blown away last weekend, la la la. And so we're chatting about things and you find out a lot more.
Human contact, isn't it?
And you know, you've still got human contact. It's just different. You can't go to Sainsbury's Cafe and sit there having a rubbish coffee.
No, my favourite coffee comes from a little local independent anyway. So
exactly. But you know, an awful lot of people do. I mean, you go to Sainsbury's or any supermarket and they've got their cafe, and there's everybody sort of sat there having a chat, which is nice, but there are other ways of doing it.
I think it's convenience to a certain point, isn't it? And I absolutely understand.
But they're all convenience stores, weren't they, always?
I understand shopping on a budget too. I absolutely do. Having had, you know, children and lots of mouths to feed, the supermarkets obviously are a lot cheaper. But you have to do what you can, really, don't you? But their milkman even delivered us bedding plants back in the summer. They were delivering all sorts of things.
But they used to do. I mean, I go right back to my milkman in the village was a horse and trap.
Excellent.
That's back in the 50s, and they would deliver all sorts. Oh, do you want a bit of kindling, missus? I got some today. Have you got? You know? Well, George can't be round with the bread, so I said I'd take it in the trap for him.
Excellent.
And you had your bread, your meat, your fish, a few vegetables, but everybody shared around the village because people grew. And, you know, the milk and all this sort of thing. And it was like we started to get a bit back to that.
bit of community, helping each other out. Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, I live a quarter of a mile from the nearest lane, and that lane, you know, the hedges touch your car each side,
right?
Even
Yeah.
with the Clio. So it is a bit in the wilds, and so, you know, the farmer. I live in the middle of an organic farm too, which is really, really nice.
Excellent.
But he doesn't live there. He's got another farm about 2 miles away. But he comes up every day, so it's like, do you need anything? Can I bring you up anything?
Yeah, brilliant.
And they're all like that. And I've got one neighbour just down, you know, 500 yards down the track, and a few more at the end. And we're all like, I'm going to so and so. Do you need anything?
Yeah, that's how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah. And little, you know, you sort of think about that adding up, because instead of sort of like 5 cars going to the shops or the town or the village, one did.
Yeah. It's just taking a bit of thought, isn't it? I mean, that's looking after each other anyway, but I do the same with herbs and magical herbs and crystals and things like that. I use what I've got. I use what I've got to hand or is in the garden, or I don't order exotic ingredients from across the other side of the globe. I use what I've got to hand. I think it is, again, it's that connection again, isn't it? If you've got stuff that's been grown locally, you've got a much stronger connection to it than something that's been shipped across the world.
Yeah. And I was thinking of that with your tribes and that kind of thing. We probably didn't ought to settle into it today, but maybe next time, this local herbs thing, because I'm really into that, and local incenses and everything like that.
Sorry, stopping the dog from stealing.
I totally realise that what we're doing. Yes, you're very beautiful. I love you. I do actually. Oh, look at that, for goodness sake. Mum. Right. Okay. Never work with children or animals.
No,
you're stealing the show, sweetheart. No, I was thinking, you know, maybe we could sort of like do things like with the tribes and the spirits of place and the herbs that you use and the stones that you use, which might sort of help. You know, you haven't got to get a superb amethyst from Madagascar that's been ripped out of her ladyship's bosom.
You can use a pebble.
And it probably will actually work even better if you've used it and you've made your connection as you do. And the same with herbs. You know, you don't actually need to to rob all the Californians of their white sage.
I don't actually like the smell of white sage, to be honest.
But I don't use it anyway. But
I've been to things where it's
just to start us off.
I just use the green garden sage from the back garden. Quite often I add lavender and rosemary into it. That's very impressive.
There you go. You can do that. That's all local herbs.
Yeah, they are. It's really straightforward to make, isn't it?
Very, very. The main thing is tie it up tight enough or it won't smoulder.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
And I learned from experience that you need to have a dish underneath it, because otherwise you get holes burnt in your carpet.
Oh my God, I've got one. I have a hole in one of my carpets.
Drop off.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more than your very nice sort of feather fan. You actually need to. Well, we've actually found we started to because we worried about that, because I've actually got some nice carpet, you know, some sort of like Turkish carpet stuff handed down. So we've actually sort of got a routine that 2 of us do it.
So that health and safety.
Well, it was. Well, one of us is called Elf and the other's called Safety, isn't it? But it does work, because, you know, then you can do this, or somebody else can be doing that, and you're holding the dish.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't like crush anything underneath.
I think it's
so easy to make.
But you've got that connection with it, and I think if you do just buy a packet of white sage and think, right, I'll just waft this around, it's not going to do what you want it to do, because you haven't got that connection with it and you haven't thought about it.
No.
Where you've made your own ones,
It's all in there.
From your own garden, or you found them foraging, or even if you've had to buy them your own herbs from the farmer's market or wherever, if you've made it and put it together, you've put some thought into it. And I think you're halfway there if you've actually put a bit of thought and effort into it.
Yeah, you are. I think we ought to talk about this next time.
Yeah, sounds like
because I think we're just setting off for another hour at this rate.
Yeah, we're on our hour already.
We are already. Okay, guys, I shall wave my incense at you. Hurrah, people. See you in a fortnight, isn't it?
Yes, we will be. This one's airing on the 5th of November, Thursday evening, 7 p.m. on Moon Books, every other Thursday.
That's right. Yeah. And I shall punt it around my network as well. So there's loads of places you can find it.
Yep, you'll be able to find it. You won't be able to get rid of us. Everywhere you look, you'll see
it. You can't hex witches week next your back.
Yeah. No, we're old witches. Yeah, we don't worry about things like that.
We have quite a lot of protection. That's another thing to talk about another time.
Yes, protection's quite important, isn't it? Yeah, I think there is a whole load of new witches that would love to hear about the basics and
it's actually quite a lot easier than you might think.
Yeah.
But it does require a little bit of intention.
Yes.
And B, a lot of heart.
Yeah. And if it's worth doing, do it properly.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Ta-ra then. Yeah. See you again, girl.
Until next time. Take care and stay safe.